Eberechi Eze would be the perfect signing for Tottenham Hotspur this summer to bolster our attacking options. Spurs are in need of that 1v1 dribbly winger specialist with players like Nico Williams linked with a move to the club. But Eberechi Eze just feels right, doesn't he? He just feels like a Tottenham signing. And I think this summer we could see the Crystal Palace man end up in a Tottenham shirt. Spurs have been linked with Eberechi Eze for some time now, dating back to his days at QPR in the Championship where he flourished and earned that move to Crystal Palace. Since then, he's gone on to be one of the Premier League's most exciting playmakers and has earned himself links with a number of top clubs this summer, but it feels as if it's got that James Maddison sense of inevitability about it that he might end up at Spurs this summer. Spurs were linked with a move for Eberechi Eze at the back end of last summer with a number of reliable journalists reporting Spurs' interest in him. It felt like a complicated deal to do at the time. There was a lot of speculation around Michael Olise's future, and Crystal Palace would want to hold on to those key assets. They're going to find themselves in the same position this summer with Michael Olise and Eberechi Eze absolutely ripping up the Premier League in the second half of the season, especially since Oliver Glasner came in and has transformed the whole club. He's got them playing that free-flowing style of football that has allowed Eberechi Eze and Michael Olise to thrive as a tandem as those two number 10s behind Jean-Philippe Mateta. Spurs are looking for that winger. We're looking for that out-and-out touchline dribbly winger signing. We've been saying this for the last few months. Eberechi Eze isn't necessarily that, but he could be. His chance creation from out wide is incredibly underrated and has got some of the best dribbling stats in the Premier League. Eze ranked second in the Premier League last season for successful take-ons per 90 and ranked 7th in the Premier League for carries into the penalty area per 90. This is where he does a lot of his best work, in and around the penalty area. And as you can see from his season heat map, he likes to operate out wide and drift inside a lot of the time. He's not necessarily that touchline-based winger that Spurs might be after, but you can't turn down the opportunity to sign someone with that quality and that dribbling ability and the devastating end product when it comes to his ability in the final third. Despite an injury-hit season last year in the Premier League for Eberechi Eze, he managed 11 goals and 4 assists in just 24 starts. Out of all players to have managed more than 20 starts in the Premier League last season, Eberechi Eze ranked 4th for expected goals and assists per 90 with 0.6. His levels of output were insane last year for someone who only started 24 games. Imagine if Eberechi Eze had played the whole season. We'd be looking at 20 goals and assists plus for someone who really showed his best form under Oliver Glasner, much like the rest of the Crystal Palace team. Crystal Palace suffered without having Olise and Eze fit for a large portion of the season, and when they play together, they absolutely thrive. But if you take Eberechi Eze out of Crystal Palace, I think Tottenham is the perfect environment to take him to the next level. Those 15 goals and assists for Eberechi Eze in the Premier League last season made it his most productive season yet. He had 115 touches in the opposition box last season. That's the most he's ever had in a Premier League season. He took the most amount of shots and had the most amount of shots on target. He's really gained that confidence in his 4th season as a Premier League player. You only have to look back to the last game of last season to see Eberechi Eze's true quality. You don't see many 10 ratings on SofaScore handed out that often, but Eberechi Eze secured that with that man of the match performance against Aston Villa. With Eberechi Eze scoring that perfect 10 rating in that 5-0 demolition of Aston Villa on the final day, his class was there for all to see. 65 touches, 2 goals, 5 shots with 4 on target, 1 assist. He won 7 out of his 11 ground duels and made 4 tackles. It was the true all-rounder performance from Eberechi Eze. He has blossomed into one of the most mature attacking midfielders in the Premier League. You saw for one of his goals in that game that link-up play with Jean-Philippe Mateta and the power on the strike from the edge of the box. He has got devastating ability in the final third, and that is something that Spurs are missing, that ruthlessness. We saw that in the back end of last season. We weren't converting as many chances as we needed to be, and we weren't creating as many either. Playing alongside that focal point striker in Jean-Philippe Mateta has brought the best out of Eberechi Eze. He's got that springboard to bounce off. We saw that in that goal against Aston Villa, that 1-2 on the edge of the box and that devastating finish. Spurs are targeting that focal point number 9 striker this summer, and that could really bring Eze's game to the next level. Someone like an Ivan Toney, someone like a Dominic Solanke, even someone already at the club like Richarlison. We saw how much more effective James Maddison was as that playmaker for Spurs last season when he had that focal point to bounce off in Richarlison, and I think Eze and Richarlison's link-up could be really vital for Spurs next season if the Brazilian does stay. With Eberechi Eze's ability to carry the ball from deep into those attacking areas, you could see Eze working as a number 8 alongside James Maddison. Naturally, the signing of Eberechi Eze would throw up questions as to whether James Maddison would be that starting number 10, but I think they could work together. Whether that's with Eze as that touchline winger on the left-hand side, or whether that's with Eze as that other attacking 8. If Spurs signed a number 6 in the summer, someone like a João Paulinho, someone who could cover the ground and protect that defence, the idea of Maddison and Eze playing together as 2 number 8s could be frightening. However, if he was brought in, I think he'd be predominantly deployed off of the left-hand side. In that 5-0 demolition of Aston Villa on the last game of last season, you can see Eberechi Eze's heat map here. The fact that he can hold that width means that Destiny Udogie can make those underlapping runs. However, in the evolution of this Spurs side under Ange Postecoglou, we could see Destiny Udogie deployed as more of a traditional left back, making those overlapping runs. Just because Destiny Udogie was deployed in that inverted fullback role last season didn't mean that he never operated as that traditional fullback. Quite often, he would go to the byline and cut the ball back, which would allow Eberechi Eze to drift inside from that left-hand side too. Again, from that heat map, you can see that's exactly what Eberechi Eze was doing in that game. Just imagine the fluidity of Udogie, Eze and Maddison in that left channel. You can see from the heat map the amount of times that he carried the ball into the penalty area. That's what we want. Spurs only won 1 penalty last season, and that's because often we weren't brave enough carrying the ball into the final third and into the penalty area. He's got a brilliant jinking dribbling ability. He's so great at taking players on. He's got so much disguise in what he does. A lovely little drop of the shoulder. Although he was deployed as that attacking number 10 on the left-hand side for Crystal Palace under Oliver Glasner last season, we've seen countless examples of how Eberechi Eze can thrive as that dribbly touchline winger. Going back to the early stages of the 2022-23 season, Eberechi Eze was deployed as that left winger against Liverpool in an early season game at Anfield. He was devastating that night. Crystal Palace earned the 1-1 draw, and Eberechi Eze was one of the best players on the pitch alongside Wilfried Zaha. They dovetailed beautifully in those left-hand channels. Eberechi Eze was allowed to drift inside, but often he would hold the touchline and hold that width. Now imagine Heung-Min Son deployed as that number 9. We know he thrives in space in behind, and I think Eberechi Eze's movement could allow Spurs to get the best out of Son Heung-Min in that number 9 role. A lot of that activity was on that left touchline, drifting inside and causing chaos. That's what we want him to do. Another interesting way in which Eberechi Eze could be deployed at Spurs next season is in that false 9 role. We know how devastating Eberechi Eze can be in the final third with his finishing ability. He's got so much disguise and so much power, but his movement off the ball is incredible as well. In the last 2 games of the season for Spurs last year, we saw Dejan Kulusevski deployed as that false 9, and I think that's a role that Eberechi Eze could thrive in if given the opportunity for Spurs. I think in short, the signing of Eberechi Eze could open up so many opportunities in terms of the development of this side under Ange Postecoglou. He's so versatile and he's got real X-factor quality, which is what Spurs need to go to that next level. In terms of the feel, which is so important, he just feels like that Spurs player. He feels like a Spurs signing. He's got connections already at the club, great friendships with the likes of Heung-Min Son. We saw how friendly they were at the end of the game in which Spurs beat Crystal Palace 3-1 last year, in which Eberechi Eze scored that beautiful free kick. He's represented by the same agency as a number of the Spurs players, CAA base, so there are links already there. This is going to be a hard deal to do. Steve Parish and Daniel Levy are tough negotiators, and Spurs need to get on this ASAP if they want to get Eberechi Eze in a Spurs shirt by the end of the window. In November last year, Eberechi Eze signed a new 3.5-year deal at Crystal Palace, running him through to 2027. It is unclear whether there is a release clause in Eberechi Eze's new contract. However, it has been reported that Crystal Palace would be willing to accept an offer of around £60 to £70 million for Eze this summer. I think he's fully worth that market value. Eberechi Eze would be a game changer for Tottenham next season. Agent James Maddison has been hard at work on international duty, probably trying to convince Eze to join him at Spurs, although he would be direct competition if he was to be deployed in that number 10 position, but there is room for both of them as we've discussed in this video. Eberechi Eze was named in Gareth Southgate's preliminary England squad for Euro 2024 and is likely to be on the plane in the summer, alongside Mark Guéhi, whose situation at Crystal Palace complicates the Eze transfer deal somewhat. However, I would not be surprised to see Mark Guéhi stay at Palace alongside Michael Olise. There has been rumours circulating this week that Olise is happy to stay at Crystal Palace, which might mean that Crystal Palace will look to cash in on Eberechi Eze. They won't want to let him go, they'll play hardball as they should, but I think Spurs can get this deal done. Eze's involvement for England at the Euros means that we probably won't see a deal happen until July. We won't see the wheels get in motion until Eze comes back from the tournament. That is unless he isn't named in the final 26 squad, but I would be very surprised to see that. On Monday this week, Eberechi Eze started his first game for England, meaning that he's very much firmly in Gareth Southgate's plans. In Monday's Euro 2024 warm-up game against Bosnia and Herzegovina, Eberechi Eze was deployed on the left wing. If Gareth Southgate thinks that he can play there, I'm sure Ange Postecoglou can too. And I'm sure there'll be conversations already happening internally at Spurs as to how they make this deal happen as quickly as possible. I think Tottenham should make Eberechi Eze their priority signing this summer transfer window. Let me know in the comments below, do you think this deal will get done? Do you think Eze should be the priority? Or do you think we should look to spend big in other positions? Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more regular Tottenham Hotspur content, and thank you very much for watching. Nice one.